You're listening to the LaRocque Life Podcast, where hosts Michael and Laura explore relationships, adventure, freedom, and just some all-around real and raw conversations. Drawing from their 17 years together with a bit of sarcasm, humor, tears, a few and lots of love. They deep dive into the male and female perspective on relationships and navigate the highs and lows of life together. Sit back, grab your love mug, and let's get into today's conversation.
All right, Laura, episode 37. What are we talking about, babe?
Tonight we're going to talk about patterns.
Patterns?
Yeah, patterns.
Okay.
We've been digging into our 6-week course that we're planning for couples who want to come together and connect on a deeper level and ignite more passion and intimacy in their relationship. And one of the components to this course is patterns. So we wanted to touch on it quickly in today's episodes, just to to give you a little tidbit into what we talk about with
just
patterns.
A little teaser?
A little teaser.
Yeah, I'm going to show you some tit, not a nipple, though. Just a teaser.
Sure.
Okay. That's where my head's at.
There's Mike's humor versus my humor.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So, patterns. You really like talking about patterns because you always go back to our original cycle.
Yeah, I wouldn't say pattern. I like talking about it, but it's good. It's a good topic to talk to a lot of men and women about. Where I was in that cycle of work all week, stressed out, and then Friday would be like, okay, I'm just gonna go have some beers with the guys, and then like my 2 beers turns into 20 beers, and do that Friday night, most likely Saturday night, and then Sunday, we would argue. Well, not even argue, just be like really, I'd feel terrible about what I did all weekend, which didn't really couldn't even remember half of it, and then I
would get mad.
Yeah, then
then you would get mad at me.
Yeah, I'd get mad at you, then we could be able to, I'd try to spin it on you somehow, and then that would happen, and then Monday, Tuesday, just kind of like awkward / didn't talk, or if we did, it was just short, whatever that was. Wednesday, we wouldn't even really reconcile it. It would just turn into like, well, I just want normal life again. So then myself anyway, I would just, try to be somewhat normal, and it would just kind of be like, okay,
and then we would reconnect.
Yeah, we'd reconnect, right? And then basically on a Wednesday, and then Thursday would be great, and then Friday rolls around and I'm doing it all over again. And I always say, like, you could set your watch to that cycle. It was fucking, looking back on it now, it's like, what were you doing, man? Like, we just waste so much time, but it was clearly doing something for us, and I was in a real comfort zone with it. I know that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's like summing it up really quickly,
it's a pretty
right?
It's a pretty
not like
vague thing.
Every moment of our life was like that, but that was the general consensus. And I like that you share that, because I think if you're listening to this, I mean, we don't tell you our story thinking that you will relate to it 110% or that your life reflects exactly that, but there's bits and pieces that you will see of yourself within the story.
Yeah.
And so your issue might not be drinking, but it could be some other substance, or it could be TV or porn, or
you just plug anything
gambling.
Into that.
Yeah, exactly. Or just like disconnect, like whatever this looks like. It's a cycle, a pattern. And so that was us like 8+ years ago, right?
Something like that.
And we still have patterns that play out in our relationship today, because I think we always do.
That'll never go away.
No, and most of them are empowering, but obviously there's still disempowering things that come up. But we have tools. We have tools to help, first be aware and then shift out of those. And I can speak for myself when I say that, like, still today, there are moments where I want to just be a victim, or I want to be mad. And it's really annoying, because knowing what I know now, I'm like, catch myself in it. And I'm like, shit, I really just want to be a victim, or I want to play out an old pattern. Yeah. But I know that it's not going to serve me. It's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve Lennox. And it's just like, okay, I have to put my ego aside and do something to shift this, whether that's me going and shifting my own energy, or whether that's, bringing it up to you or apologizing or getting to the root of something together with you. But that's just the bitch of
well, it is,
kind of
right?
awareness.
It's kind of nice to just be in fucking la la land for a couple days of being like mad, but not even sure what you're mad about, and just carrying on with life. And like, at least you have that excuse to kind of keep you down, so you're not rising up. But now that we are where we are, it's kind of like, fuck, you can sit in there for a few minutes or whatever, but then it's like, okay, we're not staying. Yeah, and you got to, right? But we're not going to sit in here for a couple days and not like, we'll hit it head on. And I'm sure that sucks for you too now. Like, I can't just be quiet now and sit on the couch. So now it's like, hey, we're fucking talking about this, and like, what's doing what, and what's like, it
is funny because I used to be so mad that you wouldn't open up and you wouldn't talk to me, right? And now I'm just like, oh, shut up.
Let's get into your inner child. Like, where did this come from? And then go on and on.
Like, God, go to bed. Yeah. But it is good. Yeah. But so we share, that story, that original story, just because I feel like it's a very, it's pretty, not extreme, but it's just,
well, it's almost generic. Blank. It's, it's point blank, but it's almost generic for like guys. Well, I speak for men, like for guys like me, like anyone in basically like the prairies. That's how we grew up, right? Like you're working, typically, like you're either working or whatever you were doing, but then weekends rolled around and like that was party time, whether it be you're in high school or fucking out of high school, whatever that was, right? Like we work hard, but you play hard or harder, and then generally that's what you did. I mean, that's all I seen. That should be the best way to put it. So that's how I learned. That's what I seen. That's what I knew, right? That's who I hung out with. Yes, exactly. Which brings me, there's two things that I want to remember we talk about. One being the victimhood, and the second one being craving connection in the way that, whether we were taught how, or we witnessed, or we learned through like how we could get connection from others while we were growing up, right? And then you just carry that into your own personal life and then into relationship with someone. So when you're talking about your pattern of just like living for the weekend, right? And then boozing, but then I came into your life, and it was like I came into your life and just like joined in on that pattern, right? But the interesting piece is that then I was like a victim, and I was like, oh, I can't believe, like, I'm in relationship, like I can't believe this is my life, but at the same time I contributed, right? Like I knew what was happening. You drove me to drinking. I didn't even like drinking for it. Yeah, right. It's how I met you. Right? But like I totally became a victim and all that. Like I just coasted on in, and then I thought I could change you and fix you. Right. But I forgot my own power in that, right? I never really knew my power at that time in my life, which I think a lot of women are moving through now. But it's like, as victims, we're giving away our power to you. So, I mean, I could have left you many times. I should have probably left you many times. Oh, absolutely, yeah. But I would have found someone else to relive those patterns through, because I got something out of it, right? I craved that disconnect and then that connect. So whether if I went and found another man and he maybe didn't drink, but he would have had something else that still gave us that cycle of, getting angry, getting frustrated, and then turning into the victim, and then having that disconnect, but then creating that reconnect. I mean, that's why makeup sex is so great, right? Like it's that reconnection that's bringing you back together. And so I just think like in that story, it's just really easy for, you to tell the story and be like, I was so terrible, I didn't think about her feelings, blah, 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 blah. But it was like, yeah, but I still came every time. I just showed up, and I was like, yeah, you okay. Do. Okay, good one. So, see, then you made me lose my train of thought. It's that humor. It's right there. So my side of all of that too was like, Friday would roll around. I knew, like, my personal then pattern was so focused on you that I wasn't even focused on myself. You were making that phone call happen of like, honey, I'm just going for a beer with the boys.
You're telling me I manifested it?
Yeah.
I manifested this? Yeah.
You're a strong person.
Yeah.
See, that's how a real alcoholic would talk. I'd put the blame on you somehow. How the fuck is this my fault?
Right. But so my personal cycles became, and this dance in our relationship became that I just came to expect it.
Right.
And so I didn't even focus on myself or what I wanted in life because I was so focused on what you were going to do and what this next step would be, even though we both knew it. Like so it was a playbook.
It's so fucking scary too how engraved that is because even now, right? Like if I say I'm going for a beer, I'm sure all those feelings just come flooding back.
Oh, they do.
Where it's like, no, I'm literally going for a beer and I'll
but
right?
remember, because then we moved to England and you literally maybe like went out and got drunk like twice.
Mm-hmm.
But I was literally like at home being like, oh my God, like it's happening. It's going to happen again. But now we're in this big, huge city and I don't know anybody. And like, this is, and I'm all alone and you're going to die and like drug off in some, I don't know,
you're gonna be a sex slave in Eastern Europe.
Right? But that's where then my head would like, everything is so connected, right? Because then we have these patterns, but then we like start telling us these stories and then it just cycles into this really crazy thing, right?
Right.
But again, you came home like you always do, but I just like had driven myself crazy in all of that time. And so again, whether it's drinking or why can't I think of any others?
Well, gambling's a big one, right?
Drinking, gambling, but even just like take those things out, like those outer factors, just even being at home and like numbing out to watching TV or just like scrolling phones separately. Like it's whatever, like we said, that is for you, inserting it in there. You're in your own head. You can be in the same room, in the same space and still expecting the same pattern, like that pull, that disconnect, and then telling yourself stories and getting angry and then thinking about all the things that he did or she didn't do and just spinning it and spiraling and then getting madder and madder, slamming doors, and then like for what?
Yeah,
right?
well, I could see in your head how you think it's not so bad. Like if you don't have those really, in my head anyway, like if I don't have those bad vices, like, you know, I'm not beating you up, I'm not fucking going drinking, I'm not doing drugs or whatever that is. But you're numbing out on a phone. It's just as bad, right? Like you're still
it's still that emotional.
Yeah. But in my head, I would be able to justify it. I'm like, fuck, babe, I'm not doing all that. Like, I'm here. I'm with you. I'm on you're on my phone, but like, I'm with you. Whatever. What more do you want, right?
Well, and this is kind of a side note, but I think this is the problem with today's world is that we think, oh, I'm here with you. What more do you want from me? But you're on your phone or watching TV, but more so on a phone, like on social media or texting people or watching TV on the phone. And it's like, but you may as well not be here.
Right.
You know, like it's the exact same emotions that are at play because you're not here. You're
I notice that a lot when I'm talking to you. All I hear is like, I'm like, do you even know what I said? Like, what? Oh, sorry.
For real?
Oh, a couple times.
Yeah, that's because you're bothering me when I'm trying to do something.
That's fair. Whatever.
That's my way of being like, excuse me, I'm busy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so okay, we talked about my feeling of being the victim. But then okay, so where do these patterns come into play and these emotions, right, that are coming into no matter what we're doing, whatever the outer circumstances? We're craving connection.
Right.
Right.
That's the underlying kind of thing on this is connection.
Yeah, and this goes back to what we were talking about last week. Like, as human beings, we crave connection. But again, it's how did we learn to get that connection? And so did we learn that the only way we could get attention was by throwing a tantrum or by, getting mad or being sad? It can be like frustrated, angry, mad, sad, depressed, anxious. Like, it doesn't matter how, because we're either wanting to get a response from you if I get angry at you.
Right.
Or like empathy, right? Like, come give me a hug and feel sorry for me.
Everyone's rubbing your back.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like really becoming aware of how you seek attention, but then also like, why are you seeking that attention?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So really like the first step, I'm going to go into the first step of starting to change your patterns, but do you feel like there's anything else that you want to say on patterns in general? And
no, I think you can get into it because everyone's quite aware of that. And I think everyone knows, like you innately know, right? Like you have a work pattern, you go to work, you start up your computer, you just tie up your work boots, like whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
It's generally the same fucking thing over and over and over.
Mhm.
And I think Tony Robbins talks about it where like whether that pattern, like if you feel yourself stuck in a bad pattern, you have to do something like just snap yourself out of it, right?
Mhm.
Like whatever that is, go for a walk, go for a run. If you're sitting at a desk for 4 hours, like get up and do some push-ups real quick. Like just change your physicality, like do something, right?
Mhm.
To get out of that, to break that pattern. But again, even just with the emotional stuff, obviously you got to do something different to break that pattern because it feels so, I know that's when I feel the most comfortable, right? When you feel yourself sliding into like an old pattern that works. Like I can lay on the couch and eat pepperoni all night and I fucking love that, right? And that's a great pattern for this cowboy, but it's not so great for my belt line.
For your physique.
For my physique,
Yeah,
right?
but also your mental health, because then you start sliding down.
Oh, and I'm a
right?
fucking,
And then,
like, it's a crazy carpet for myself.
Mhm.
Like, I can slide down that hill fast and
Mhm.
just be down there, right? So, I think everyone, like, you're innately aware of that, or
Well, you either are or you aren't, though, because, well, I think, yes. Okay, so you're innately aware, but then when it comes to relationship patterns, I think that they become so unconscious, or they've always been really unconscious, because you just sort of came together and it's how you molded together.
Mhm.
And this is how this dance went, right? Like I make a move, you make a move, and we totally know what to expect, and we go back and forth, and it's just our pattern. We know.
are these for your dance lessons in London or what?
Knees, corners.
corners.
Side note, Mike and I are the most
What kind of dance was it? Like hip hop, wasn't it? Or like contemporary or some
I
fucking
think it
thing?
was like hip hop dance, but we're like the least hip hop people, you know.
It's like, you got any George Strait in that motherfucker or what?
We could
Like,
two-step the
yeah,
shit out of this.
that's what all I do.
We
Yeah.
just were getting out of our comfort zone, which is, I mean, this kind of
That was a
into
great,
this for
that was
sure.
a great pattern disruptor
Yeah.
for sure.
And we'll get into that. But so yeah, we have this dance within our relationship, right? And we're both unconsciously contributing to it. And so the first step is becoming aware of what those are, because I think there's things in our relationships that we're not really happy with, but we just carry on because we're just like, well, whatever, this is just the way things are, and we don't even really realize that we're capable of changing it, right? But the first step is awareness, and I mean awareness of what that pattern even is in your relationship, but then awareness B of your feelings, because you can become aware of the pattern, but you can't change your partner, right? So you can only change your own feelings and how you show up in the pattern, right? So there's that. And then there's also then how you communicate in your relationship, right? So I always coach my girls on, okay, why are you mad? Or why are you frustrated? Or why are you, seeking, what are you seeking? Is it something within yourself that like you can take care of, or like you can fulfill? Or is it something from your partner? And if it is something from your partner, instead of just like giving him the silent treatment or getting angry or waiting, being sad and waiting for him to come to you, just like go talk to him.
Well, fucking tell him, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be
Or
like
vice
the
versa,
biggest
right?
lesson, right? Just talk to him, especially with your partner. Like this is supposed to be the person you can tell anything to, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to just talk. I mean, obviously we'll talk, we'll get more into that, especially with communication. That's a big part of our program. But like, it's not fucking rocket science, man. Just go talk to the person and figure it out.
And do you think that people don't talk because of a pattern, or like of rejection, a fear of rejection?
It
fear
probably
of
all
not
those
being
things, right? Like
seen
I
or
know
heard?
I wouldn't want to do it just for rejection reasons, for thinking that you'll leave. Like you'll leave me if we really get to know the true me. Like why would you be with me?
Yeah, so vulnerability and self-worth.
It's massive, right?
Uh-huh.
And then just not wanting to cause a fight, but you could be in the
Right.
middle of one anyway. So you're like, why not get to the fucking bottom of it and just stop it?
Yeah.
But again, I think a lot of it too, for myself anyway, comes from just working on my own self-confidence, being who I want to be. And then I can project that to you, or just get it across to you right away, and either get on board or get the fuck out of the way, right? And that's kind of where my head's at now. And now that I have more of a purpose, and I can feel that purpose and live into that purpose, it's like, you're with me, you're my woman, and this is what we're doing, and that's my direction. For the longest time I was so aimless and just letting life kind of happen to me, where it was just like, well, this is what it is, and we didn't know, and these patterns were just playing out with no direction, no anything, right? But now that I have like a real North Star and have a purpose, it is going that way, and I think it really projects onto you as well. Like,
well, I think the irony in that is that, you know, when you would not say, this is it, get the fuck out of the way kind of thing, you think that saying what you want to say will harm the relationship. But I think personally, from my side, from the more feminine side, that I'm like, fuck yeah, like you just manned up, right? And
yeah,
like,
well,
you owned it, and then I think that's attractive, or like that's what I want, because that's like assertiveness and like taking charge of your own shit, right? Like leading yourself.
Yeah.
And then I suddenly feel safer, even though, like, you know, it might be not something that I necessarily want to hear. But at the same time, I think your assertiveness and your taking charge of yourself then is like, okay, we can work on that.
Oh, 100%, right? It's hard because even with yourself, even just going through everything we went through, even just the last few years, right? Trying to figure out what exactly we're honing in on and how we can help the most people that we can, and how our story or how our skill set and everything that we learned so far, like how can we package this to help people in a real tangible way. There's been so many ebbs and flows with that, where I'm sure you're like, come on, man, just do this or take the lead or like do something. And then I'm in the same boat, or I'm like, come on, Laura, this is what you do. Like we should be able to do this a lot quicker, whatever it is. But at the same time, it's like now that we're kind of on the same track, it's like, holy fuck, now it's just like, now we're like the Eurostar.
We're the high speed
now we're the high speed train. But it really is, right? Or it's just, again, just all these patterns of breaking out of that comfort zone and really just feeling into it and being that person, like be who you want to be. And then you give that to your partner, and it's only going to make, it's going to break those patterns, good or bad. Right. And at least, you know, right away, it might not even be the best thing. Maybe you do have to go your separate ways or whatever that is, but fucking be honest with yourself, and then be honest with your partner, so that you're not just wasting fucking time.
Well, yeah, life is precious, right? And just wasting.
It really is, and especially like these prime years.
Talent.
Yeah,
right?
like if
your
you're
gifts.
if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you're wasting time to what, right? Like for what? And then when you hit 50, 60, 70, you are wiser because of all these experiences that you had, but you're almost at a point where it's like, well, fuck, now we're like, my kids are growing, my grandkids are going, like I have to. You're almost too old, or people won't even fucking listen to you half the time. They're like, I wish you would just listen to what I know now. But you could save 30 years by just having some really open conversations with yourself and with your partner, right? And
yeah, well, I think that's definitely the first step in getting changing patterns, but is getting really honest. Oh, and of yourself.
It is,
right?
and it's
like,
the more
your situation.
The more I do it too, the more I realize like what's important in your life, who's important in your life, and what you need to keep that going, or what you need to cultivate that. And there's so much fucking fluff or just garbage that you can cut out without even skipping a beat, and you don't really affect their life. They're like, oh, well, he's on to something else. Like now I'll just stay here where I'm safe, or wherever I'm at. Like this, whether it be friends, some family, whatever that is. If you have to leave them behind, then so be it. There's just too much to do, or there's too much life to live to fuck around in these shitty patterns.
Yeah, and I guess I should note that like we're obviously talking more specifically on our self patterns, but then also like our relationship patterns,
big time too.
You have patterns with your friends and your siblings and your parents.
Well, any
like
relationship, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It really is.
Children.
Yeah, even like your boss at work, like whatever it's at work, you're always, if you're like kind of being like, I don't know what you call it, subordinate or submissive a little bit to your boss, like fuck that, like just be a normal, like be you to that person, and that there's a reason you're there, there's a reason they hired you, right? Like be that fucking person, don't just be a yes person all the time, or I mean, don't be a pain in the dick too all the time, but like just
well, that comes back to like just being aware of yourself and more authentic, right? Just be you. And because I think of what a lot of people, and this, we talked about this before, is like the grass is always greener on the other side, right? So we get caught up in these patterns of like, my boss is the dick, or my partner is a dick, or my kids don't listen to me, or my mom's being a bitch, like all these things. And then forgetting to look inwards, which is where that victimhood we were talking about earlier comes into play.
Where's your line? If you're pointing fingers.
For every finger you're pointing at someone else, there's always 3 fingers pointing back at you. But your patterns are going to follow you wherever you go until you stop and become aware of yourself and how you're showing up. Because, like I said, if I would have left you and went and found another partner, we would have just created the same thing. It could have looked differently, but we would have created the same patterns.
Right.
Because I would have been looking for connection in the only way I knew how. And so I would have found someone to fill that void, right? When whether it's your boss or friendships, you're going to go out subconsciously looking for people who dance that dance with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so becoming aware of yourself and also of your partner so that you can see where they're starting to go into a pattern. Because I can see it in you, right? Like if you come home down from work or something, I can see how you can escalate into a pattern. So I'm kind of like, he needs his space or he needs me in his face to be like, hey.
Whoa, wait, you just come up with that or what? It's pretty good.
He needs his space or he needs me in his face.
But it's true. But we have that arrangement now, or we have that agreement, right? Where we have that communication, because you can't, if you would just came at me, 10 years ago like that, I would have told you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
So you have to have that. It's not even baby steps. They're just steps to that, right?
Yeah. But I mean, we have a level of communication now too, where I can just straight up ask you and you can straight up tell me. I'm like, hey, do you need a moment or do you need us? Like, right when you walk in the house and me and Lennox might be a lot because we haven't seen someone all day or something. You're like, I'm just going to go downstairs for 5 minutes. We're like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
or if you're just like, no, I just need your energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we just have that honesty.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm sure it goes both ways, right? But it also goes to self. Like, I know, and I'm just like, I'm going to lose my marbles. I need 5 minutes in my office, or I just need to go take a breather, right? And you're just like, okay, Lennox, come with me.
No, that's fair.
Right. Whereas, yes, we could definitely go down old habits very easily, old patterns.
Yeah.
So that brings to step 2, where we obviously need to then once you have the awareness of patterns, then you need to interrupt them. So again, that comes back to, being aware of your own emotions and knowing where you can go take care of those first. But then if a cycle's already started, like let's say we're already down a cycle, and this happened in our last podcast episode, right? Where we were talking about when you came home from BC and we were going to bed, and we could have very easily went down an old pattern of just like switching off, getting angry, but holding it in, and then just,
just saying, like I would have just said nothing's wrong.
Yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
Right?
I'd be like, no, something's really wrong with you. Nothing's fucking wrong.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, fine, fuck you kind of thing, right? Like in my own head, because I'm a shutdowner. So I would just like shut myself down and then like give you the silent treatment, right? And that could last a day or two.
Right.
So if that's already started, it's a matter of like, okay, we have to do something different.
Yeah.
So I always tell my clients, when you're like in a dance with your partner or like in this pattern, it's like, do something completely different. Like do something that they would never see coming and something that like you would never do, because you literally need to shift what is happening here. And it's like literally changing the steps to a dance. When you change one step, your partner, I mean, they can't continue doing the same step, right? It's not going to work. So it has to be reciprocated. So you kind of just like throw that whole train off the track, right?
Right.
And then it brings the unconscious to the consciousness, right? Because then it's like, holy shit, I just like got, smacked across the face, and like that didn't, like he didn't do what I was subconsciously expecting him to do. So what the fuck is going on, right? And then I make a new choice.
Right.
But it's a conscious choice, not just this unconscious programming that keeps going on.
Makes sense.
Yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
Just kind of went off on a little ramble there.
No, it's good.
And then we talked about the communication. So getting to the root of what's actually going on. And we talked about that on our last podcast, because then it was like, okay, what the fuck just happened? But then you talked about what your expectation was, and then I shared where I was coming from, because we have that level of communication now. We didn't always have that. But because of the tools now, we could get to that. And then it was like, okay, now we can, like, this really has nothing to do with right here in this moment. This is a fantasy you had, a feeling I'm having, and we could get to the root of it and then make new choices.
Yeah, totally.
Right? It's all about making new choices. And then I think lastly, what I would say on patterns is like being proactive. So once you're aware of patterns that aren't serving you in your relationship, whether you're together on this or not, just one person in the relationship could be aware of it,
Right.
or both of you. But just like being really proactive and looking for ways to meet your needs and connect outside of the chaos, getting angry, getting sad, whatever that looks like, that you need to get to that emotion in order to feel a connection so that you can reconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Be proactive and think of ways that you can seek love and attention outside of chaos.
Okay. Give me an example of that.
Give you an example of that. Because you really need, or because you just want me to give an example?
Well, no, I'm just trying to explain it to me like I'm 12. Explain it to me like I'm 6. No, I'm just trying to picture that, because when you say outside, then it's like, holy fuck, you're like, are you seeking outside like attention, or are you seeking outside validation? But it's not really what you're saying, hey? Like,
no,
that's
so
within the
I'm
relationship.
just saying, like, well, either or. So like, if I am seeking attention, my first question would be, am I giving myself enough attention?
Okay.
Right? Like, am I asking for enough space for myself? Like, I'm just thinking of my life right now with you and Lennox. It's like, okay, so am I giving myself enough alone time to just like regroup and recharge? And if it's like, if that answer is no, then I would ask you, or I would book in something for myself, like be like, hey, you got Lennox tomorrow night because I'm going to sign up for this workshop, right? Like, that was literally a conversation we just had.
Yeah.
Just double checking that you're cool for bedtime, and I'm going to check out, right? Because that's going to fill me up. It's going to connect me with other women, and I'm going to come into our relationship being happier, right? So that's a way I would connect to myself or to other women, which then like fills me up.
Right.
But then if I'm feeling like if I'm just aware that I'm not really feeling very connected to you this week, or, like right now, it's like, hey, let's get a babysitter and let's do something. Like, let's go out sledding, just the two of us, so that we can laugh and play. Or let's go for dinner. Or, I mean, COVID times does definitely look a little bit different, but there's still ways. Like, we could even still take Lennox, but it's like, you know what, on Saturday, instead of cleaning the garage, like, let's head out west and just go hike some mountains, or, get out and build a snowman. Like, just do something where I know, like, and no phones. Like, let's make some, like, kind of some stipulations here. But just planning ahead, or I'm just like, I'm feeling disconnected from you, and I'm aware of this because of step 1.
Yeah.
So let's go out and laugh. We need to laugh, because then I'm not going to get mad at you and start a fight and seek attention in some way.
Yeah, those are big steps, even just in our relationship too, right? Like, what was that last Saturday? Went to the mountains with Derek, and like, just for myself, and like that made me feel great, and just to get out with another guy, right? I mean, just have bullshits and whatever, right? And it just and that brings in, again, like you said, you're filling your own cup so you can bring more to the relationship. Because I think that's where everyone's at too, especially right now during these times. Like, everyone's fucking running on E.
Yeah.
And then it just takes, even look at the person. Like, do you have to breathe that way? Like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
So I get it. 100% I get it. And even tonight, right? Like, go for a walk with your friend, right? And
yeah, and I guess that's a really good point to make, because, like, Lennox has had a sore tummy, and today was just kind of a big day, and was really in mom zone. And then I was starting to feel kind of anxious, and I was like, oh, and then I texted him, like, should I go for a walk? Maybe I'll cancel it. And you're just like, no, go. And it's a good thing I did, because I went for a walk with a girlfriend, and we just had girl chat and lots of fresh air, some exercise, movement, right? Like, changing my state. Like, literally changing my state by changing my environment and then my physiological state. And I came home feeling completely different, which, could you feel that?
Oh, 100%, right? And that's the only reason this is happening tonight, because
otherwise I would have been like, I'm too tired.
Oh, 100%. Like, I was down too, right?
Yeah.
Like, or not down, but just tired from the day. And
yeah,
it's crazy how it just takes a couple little things and you can flip it, and and off you go.
And I guess that's like cool, where you go back to personal responsibility and owning your own energy and being aware of your own thoughts and feelings, because I knew that about myself, right? And so you could have come home, I would have been like, just kind of meh and maybe bitchy, or like some remarks here and there,
right?
Which then like would only spiral us downwards, right? And then we'd end up going to bed just being
it
like,
doesn't help anything. Yeah, you put on your parka and
my Sherpa.
Oh, your Sherpa? Is that what it is?
Yeah. But instead, because I was aware of what I needed. So, I mean, that's literally what I'm talking about in step 3, like looking for ways to reconnect. So first with myself and then with you. So
Right.
I knew what I needed, and it was girl time and it was fresh air. So I got that, came home, and we'll see what happens after this.
Yeah, here we are, right? So no, that's awesome, man. That's great. So what's your number 3?
That is number 3,
Oh,
being proactive.
nice.
That was 1, 2, 3. Awareness of self and your partner, like awareness of the patterns.
Mm-hmm.
2 is interrupting those patterns, either by, doing something different for yourself, and owning your own emotions. But then once the cycle started, behaving or acting in a different way, doing something completely different, like taking a step back, or like just starting to laugh, or like ask your partner to look into their eyes for a moment, or like just something ridiculous.
No,
even,
it is,
or
man.
just being like just literally interrupting that pattern because it's so unconscious.
Yeah.
Or I talked about communicating, which are, again, tools you have to cultivate over time. And then the third one was being proactive.
Yeah. Off topic, but I can't wait till we can have like in-person workshops, and we're gonna fucking drag people through that staring.
And making them stare into each other's eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it doesn't even have to be a couples thing. Like,
No, what was that one? Me and Buddy were like, well, was it a half hour?
It was 20 or 25 minutes.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was something. It was a fucking long time because there's a few songs, and then there's like they did the songs where it was like emotional roller coasters, right? Like it was like whatever, and then there's like I swear there's like Sarah McLachlan with that fucking dog commercial or whatever that is. Or, is it dogs?
I don't know. This is the I Will Remember You song, right?
I don't know. There's a few of them. It was like, holy fuck, sitting there crying, staring at this guy. It's like, you're so beautiful. But anyway, that's off topic. But I mean, totally there's so many fucking activities that we can do to snap things that we've learned over time, right? And that's the biggest thing for myself and for us, putting together programs now and really stepping into our own power and being these people. Because we've learned so much and we've been through so much, and we've been through so many of these workshops, and it's time to start paying this forward. I think it's taken our relationships like leaps and bounds, right? And now I really want to, I see so many people in that same state. Yeah. Like there are two people that genuinely love each other. Like there's love there. It's just to get that across, or to keep that fire burning, right? Because there is no more truth than like fucking the grass is not greener on the other side.
No. And that's like an interesting key point to say for patterns, and how we're talking about like you leave one partner, and unless you heal that within yourself within that relationship, and then it's still not working, and you move on, and then now you're on a different playing field. Or if you leave that relationship and then go and heal and then look for a new partner,
spend some time on you,
but not jumping from relationship to relationship because it's going to follow you. But we were just talking about that last night, right? Like I was telling you how I look back and I see people who aren't together anymore that I'm like, initially I'm shocked.
I know, it makes you feel weird.
Like the old me is shocked because I'm like, oh, but like I thought they were so in love, or like what happened? And I mean, I don't know their life, so how would I know? But then it really brings me back to like the intention of this work and really my why behind it, because it's like, what if learning this stuff would have shifted their whole relationship? I mean, I also believe in soul contracts, and maybe they're not meant to be together and they fulfilled what they needed to do. But especially when there's kids involved, I have a like really soft spot in my heart for that, because my parents divorced when I was 3. And I mean, I would have just, loved for my parents to have been together for my whole life, but in love, not just together for the sake of being together.
That's the kicker.
Like I'm happy I had 2 separate households that were happy than living in one unhappy household for the rest of my life. But I'm just saying, like, it holds a special place in my heart for people in relationship with children, because it's like, one, you're teaching them how to be in relationship, and now they're going to go and take that into their life. And if you're just coasting and, settling, what are you teaching them?
Oh, it's massive, right?
On the second hand, if you're splitting up, did you give it your all? And not to place guilt on you, but did you learn these like simple tools, these simple shifts, which they're not easy, right?
Right.
Like they're simple analogy. They're not easy to implement.
No.
But still, like, I just think like what could have been for some couples, because this is for us too, right? Like we could have very well split. But what was the thing we learned that like kind of course corrected us, right? And then course corrected us again. And I mean, I think we're always course correcting.
100%.
Right? Yeah. But we're just always like open to learning something about ourselves and then something about each other, which we can then relate or have compassion and not like get resentful. And then that just builds over time and pushes you further and further apart. Like that spark is dead.
Mm-hmm.
The disconnect becomes stronger.
You've just gone too far.
Yeah, you've gone too far. So I think this kind of stuff should, be taught in school, but then like this is great, like marriage courses, right?
Yeah.
Because if you know these tools going into your relationship, like how powerful could that be?
Mm-hmm.
And really grow your relationship with a strong foundation instead of just like being thrown into the fire and trying to figure it out.
Well, yeah.
Right?
And I like how you talk about the kids, because that's really the biggest thing. Like, at least with men, like I know with Lennox, he'll know this is how you treat a woman. That's like, and we say it all the time, right? Like, you're our lady, we protect you, we do these things, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. And
he calls me his pretty lady.
Yeah, his pretty lady. But if especially for daughters, right? Like, like you're teaching them
standard.
Yeah, you're teaching them not to take shit from some guy, or like if you're getting treated a certain way, it's like, no, that's not how you treat somebody. Or this is not, I'm better than this, or I'm not standing up for this shit. And you can get out of that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you're strong enough, and those kids see that all the time. Some fucking loser's not going to break down your daughter in a month or two, right? And treat her like a piece of shit or whatever that is. She'll be smart enough.
Some really narcissistic people can. It's been done.
Oh, it has been done, 100%. Yeah, right. I mean, that you can't really control, but at least you're arming your daughter with as much tools or as much ammunition as you can. And I mean, obviously, she's on her own journey, and she'll have to make those choices. But at least you're teaching them how it should be, or at least a better way.
But you're showing them, because I think you can like treat and teach your daughters or your sons, whether you're the mother or the father. Mm-hmm. But when they see what is happening in your relationship, that's what they're really like absorbing, right? Like they're witnessing.
Yeah, you can talk about it all day, but
yeah, exactly. What they're witnessing, what they're seeing, what they're feeling is what they're really absorbing into their unconscious mind, their subconscious mind, and taking into their adulthood, right? Yeah, but then also how you connect with your children, but then how you connect with your partner, because that's how they're learning to seek connection, and then they're not going to necessarily go and seek it in a chaotic way.
Right. And you talk about it all the time, right? Where you want our house to be the house where kids are going to be at. Like, bring your friends over so we know, like, just so we'll be that house, like we'll be those people. And I think that's a big deal. Like, you can feel that when you go into someone's house, right? You can feel the energy, whether people are walking around on eggshells, or like you come here, and I hope anyway, or most people, like, it's a fucking relaxing place. Like, come here, chill out, like fucking just whatever, right? Like, relax. There's no stress. Keep it simple. But I know some places you walk into and right away, like, I can feel it. Like, that
the tension.
There's just tension, and there's like, just everything, right? So that goes a long way too. Like, I know for myself anyway, I just want that. Like, I would just want to, or not even want, that's what it is. Like, just chill the fuck out, man. This is our safe zone. This is where we're at. And this is, so, I mean, even with Lennox, right? Like, I feel that's what he does now. Like, he just relaxes. He just does his thing, right? And that's a big skill. And I'm glad that we're able to start breaking these patterns, like even just generational stuff.
Yeah,
right?
That's just it. Yeah.
That's the massive one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he'll have his whole, like, fucking gamut of other problems, and the times change and problems change, but at least he doesn't have to perfect. At least he doesn't have to by no means fucking perfect, but at least he doesn't have to deal with all that shit plus this new stuff going on, right? So, or
it's just a foundation, right? Like building a strong foundation, and then he can
and like you say, it's not perfect by any means. Like 100% we fall off the rails a lot, but at least it's quick to get back on and carry on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that was my last note that I made, that it takes time and it takes practice to break these addictions to these emotions that you're getting filled when seeking connection with your partner, right? And so you have to really be gentle with yourself and really like practice. Like, this is where you always say, like, the rubber hits the road, right? Like, when you're in the middle of that pattern or that cycle playing out, when you're just like, then you get your hit of awareness and you're like, damn it, I need to make a change. And it's hard because you don't want to, because it is an addiction. You're getting something out of it, but then also your ego is at play. But those are the moments when you're like, okay, make a new choice, do something different, interrupt this pattern, right? And the more that you do that, I think the sooner you realize it. And then eventually you start to just not even get to that point when you're like, oh, this pattern is playing out, because you already knew that it was coming and chose something different. So it takes time. It takes practice. Be gentle. Start where you're at. And that's about what I got.
No, I love it. Well, we talked a lot about that, but again, we've been mentioning this program. We're in the thick of it now. We don't have an actual date yet, though, Yet?
Well, not at the time of recording this. By the time you're listening to this, there will be a time, a place to sign up. So it is happening, in the next couple of weeks. We just, at this point, don't have the exact place for you to go to. So when you're listening to this, just go to LaRocque Life and you will see the link for the information and you can sign up exactly there. Just get on the wait list, DM us if you need more information, whatever that looks like. But reach out for sure. And essentially, just to give it like a really quick recap, it's going to be 6 weeks for couples who are wanting to strengthen that connection and create more intimacy and passion. And we're not just, going to talk about gazing into each other's eyes. Like, we're actually going to give you some education, but tools and exercises to take into your relationship, because there's going to be lots of self-awareness, but then also tools to begin understanding, what do we say, the roles. So
the
feminine, masculine, but like really getting clear on what the roles are and how you both contribute to that, and understanding each other's roles and how you can support each other to really like grow and nourish and be your authentic self.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then in that comes these patterns and recognizing these patterns. And we're going to dive deeper into this kind of stuff that we talked about today. And then communication. We're going to dive deep into communication and kind of just taking that communication level to a deeper avenue. And so basically, if you're in a relationship that could use quite a bit of work, you'll definitely find, and you're both open to it, you'll definitely find skills and tools and awareness in this course. But even if you're at a place when your partner or in your relationship where you're just kind of like, we know there's more, like we could grow deeper together, we could connect deeper, you're still going to get something out of this for sure, because it's just taking what you know and just going deeper with it. And that's why I think the reason that we created that is because like 8 years ago, we were at that place of like, holy shit, like, I don't think we should be together.
Oh, exactly, right.
And not necessarily that we shouldn't be together, but we just had a lot of work to do. So you'll get that out of this. But where we're at now is like, we're just always open to learning more information and taking what we do learn and incorporating it and going deeper in our relationship. And so it doesn't matter where you're at in your relationship, as long as you're both open and willing to grow and to change, then this program will be for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great summary. Awesome. Well, we leave it at that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Cool. Well, I love you.
I love you too.
Love you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at LaRocque Life Podcast and online at LaRocqueLife.com. Ladies, find Laura on social media at Laura LaRocque and online at LauraLaRocque.com. Have a request for a show topic? We love that. Send us an email at michael@LaRocqueLife.com or DM at LaRocque Life Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review.